I would like to make a counter video to several of the atheist videos I've been watching, how they say that there are numerous contradictions within the Bible and how Christianity was actually stolen from previous religions, ancient religions. Now, I could easily say that there's no possibility of that, and I'm going to show why. And before you turn the video off, I would recommend that if you are at all interested in reality, then you stay tuned. I'd first like to comment on the contradictions, or so-called contradictions. We have to keep in mind that there's two sections in the Bible that we call testaments, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The New Testament is referred to as the New Covenant, and the Old Testament is referred to the Old Covenant, and they're both very valid. And it's not really fair that people like Jacqueline Glenn and others mention Christians that commented to them when they didn't know what they were talking about. They had no idea. They're just relying on their faith. And if that works for them, that's good. For me, I wanted to know. And I spent 30 years finding out. Now, in regards to the contradictions, or so-called contradictions, with the New and Old Testament, in the Old Testament, things were different. Man, in all his ancient stupidity, which isn't very different from modern stupidity, told Moses that they want a set of laws because they don't want to meet God, the Creator. They wanted to have something written down so that they could look at it and say, okay, this is what we got to do. So God got together with Moses up on the mountain and came down with the clay tablets as we understand them now. And actually it was quite a bit more in depth and evolved over time. And then what we understand is the Ten Commandments. And it turned out that man could not follow God's law. He gave them law because they asked for it. And he wanted to give them what they wanted. So he gave them law, but they couldn't follow that. They couldn't do the law. So God had to come in the flesh as Jesus Christ to fulfill the law. A lot of Christians think that the law is invalid now, but that's not what it says. It says that the law is now written in our hearts. And Christ himself came and stated that he did not come to do away with the law, but to fulfill the law. So the law is very relevant now. Mind you, then we have the atheists that say that, well, the Old Testament says this, the New Testament says that. They don't say it like that because they don't understand what's an Old Testament, what's a New Testament, what's an Old Covenant, what's a New Covenant. They just say that this it says it over here, this, and then it contradicts it over here. But really, it doesn't contradict, it fulfills. Now, because of the limited time that we have, 10 or 15 minutes or whatever the videos are that we're allowed to have, I have to move as quickly as I can. And any questions and comments you can just put them down below. And I'm actually writing a book now to prove what I'm telling you. Mainly in this next segment on how Christianity plagiarized ancient religions. We know from the ancient Hebrew that the prophecy of the Messiah came right from Genesis chapter 1 verse 1. And at the time, before even writing was developed, we knew that there were several verbal prophecies about the Messiah, lots of them. So the people of the era that I'm going to be talking about were well aware of the prophecies of the Messiah. It was nothing new to them. Skip ahead from the Genesis 1:1, we get to a man the Bible refers to as Nimrod, that we know outside the Bible as Gilgamesh. He became a great leader, and as God put, a great hunter. Between him and his wife mother, Samaramis or Semiramis, some people pronounce it one way, some another. And yes, that was his wife mother, because he married his mother and created an offspring by the name of Tammuz. They created a religion, what we consider now as ancient Babylonian religion. They were in the land of Sumer or Mesopotamia, the cradle of society, as it is put. Nimrod hated God and wanted to convert his subjects to a new religion. We'll just call it ancient Babylonian religion. And what he did in that is he took all the prophecies of the Messiah and other prophecies and built them into the ancient Babylonian religion. And Tammuz, his son, his brother's son, was to be the fulfillment of the Messiah, according to Nimrod or Gilgamesh. And they were building a tower we know as the Tower of Babel. And what ended up happening was they wanted to build this tower to reach the heavens so that they can encounter or confront God. So God, in all his wisdom, decided, well, I better change their languages because they're going to end up dying because there's not enough atmosphere up there and they don't know that. So he changed all their languages and they all spread out to different areas, bringing their ancient Babylonian religion with them. The only difference is that they all spoke a different language and there was no translation from one language to another. So they took all the same gods, all the same belief systems to these new lands, along with the prophecies of the Messiah that their master, leader, priest, pope, whatever, taught them into this new language. That's where we get the ancient Egyptian language, the ancient Roman language, religion, the ancient Roman religion, all the ancient religions, including Hindu, which some people believe that Hindu is the oldest religion in the world, but if we really do the research, we find that the Tower of Babel, or Babel, and the ancient Hindu religion are within a couple hundred years of each other when the languages were apparently changed. But it's really hard to get an exact date on either of those particular things, because we're talking about ancient history and record keeping, and calendars were a little different then. It wasn't as much of a science as it is now. They did their best, but it was ancient times. And then, when these religions found their new homes in their new areas and new language, from that point on, they made their own little evolution into what made that ancient religion famous, made that ancient religion notable, including ancient Egyptian, and Jacqueline talking about Horus. Horus was just, you can read it in my book. Anyway, and the book is going to be free for the first while, so I'm not looking to get rich on anything, so we can eliminate that right away. And she also mentioned, and I've heard it mentioned lots of times before, that hell was never mentioned in the Old Testament. And I'm sorry that I'm skimming through everything, but with the limited video time, I don't have a choice. The hell was never mentioned in the Old Testament. It's a New Testament thing, only a Christian idea. Well, that has its merit. But if we understand that the Old Testament was written in ancient Hebrew, and the New Testament was written in Greek, and we look up the word Sheol, which in the Old Testament they used a word called Sheol, that if we read all the definitions of Sheol, it matches exactly the definitions of what we consider hell now. And then we look in the translations between ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek. The translation for Sheol is hell. So the word hell was mentioned in the Old Testament, I don't remember the number of times, I think it was 300 times. It's just that it was in a different language. And there's more where this came from, and I thank you for listening to me. This is actually going to become a series. Thank you for your time.